Okay, doing this video on end time prophecies because, really, I guess for new converts, and not every Christian, obviously, is a prophecy buff. A lot of Christians don't even read the Bible, which they really should, but they don't. And a lot of people don't know what end times prophecies are. I see a lot of videos all over the place saying that these are end times videos, but a lot of people don't understand the difference between news and actual end time prophecies. Like if they have an end times video, but in the video there's a sinkhole or there's a teacher who, a building collapsed on, or someone being shot by the police, that's not end time prophecy, that's just news. So a lot of these people doing videos, they don't really know what end time prophecies are. And a lot of people like these videos because the viewers don't know what end time prophecies are. So because of that, I decided to make this video just to recap, give a broad overview on what end time prophecies actually are. I've been a prophecy buff for since 1991. I'll spare you all the details, but a good portion of 2 decades, actually longer, if I consider how my parents raised me. But I've seen a lot of different changes. I've seen some things get worse and worse over my period of 10, 20, 25 years. But before I actually start, what I want to do is encourage you parents, you Christian parents, talk to your kids, talk to the young people. You elders, talk to the young people. Tell them about how things were when you were growing up. It's nice to share those sort of stories. When I was young, I used to listen to my father and his peers and my grandfather and his peers talk about a world that I just didn't know. You know, what they did for fun, the games they played. For example, my grandmother, she used to leave the door wide open. Because remember, they didn't have electricity and stuff like that back then. But they would leave the house with the door wide open. My father's time, they would close the door. My time, we would close the door and lock it. As I got older, you're closing the door, you're locking it, you're putting the chain over the top, maybe a deadbolt by that time. Nowadays, what are you doing? You're closing the door, you're locking it, you're setting the alarm, you're buying a dog and cocking your gun. Scriptures say, the last days, sin will be rampant and it will cool the love of many. So these stories, you tell the younger people so they know, okay, wow, you guys used to leave the door wide open. Didn't you have people coming in and robbing you? No. You do now. I don't think anybody watching this is going to be crazy enough, at least not in Western culture, to leave your door wide open when you leave the house. It's not going to happen. So times have changed. And I also remember, even as a youth, when people put their thumbs up, on hitchhikers, we would stop and we would pick them up. Nowadays, how many cars are going to pass someone trying to bum a ride? The only person that's probably going to stop is a trucker or a policeman, because you can't trust people. You don't know if the person's crazy, if they're going to rob you or whatever. You just keep on driving. So times have changed that much. Even with our music, those of you who are old enough to remember when we would buy records and cassette tapes, before CDs existed, they didn't have parental advisory stickers on them. I don't remember curse words, and I guess there were some sort of sexual connotations in it, but it's nothing like today. Nothing like today. Same thing with television. Watching the news, you didn't hear people cursing and stuff like that in the news. You do now. So anyway, you got to share the stories of how things were when you were growing up, so that these young people who were born into this, who don't know anything else, they can look and say, wow, times were like this back then, but I'm born into this stuff. It seems normal to me. Because when they get older, it's going to be even worse. I don't know how much more worse it can get, but it's going to be even worse. So you got to share your stories of how times were, so they have something to gauge it against. That way, they would understand how prophecy has come to light. So anyway, that's just my encouragement. Dealing with the prophecies themselves. Again, I've been a prophecy buff since 1991. No one's taught this to me. I've not read it anywhere, but through my reading, I see 4 elements of end-time prophecies. I see nature. I see elements that concern the world, elements that concern Israel, and prophecies that concern the church. I see 4 elements of end-time prophecies. When it comes to nature, obviously we know about earthquakes in diverse places. There are places that are having earthquakes that have never had earthquakes before. Record-breaking earthquakes. I mean, earthquakes all the time. I've seen some of the reports where it's just like every day you may not feel them because they're so low, but it's like every day there's earthquakes. And the stunning part is some of the places that have never had earthquakes are having some of the worst earthquakes. Then there's the roaring of the seas. That's another prophecy. How easily we forget. I mean, within the last 10, 15 years, how many tsunamis have we had? I mean, just recently we had the Japanese tsunami. If you saw any video footage of that, I didn't think Japan was going to recover, at least not that section of Japan. It was terrible. And then you had the tsunami, I think it was maybe 12 years ago. Time's really moving quickly, but it's about 12 years ago that affected like 6 or 7 different countries, and it killed something like 250,000 people. Roaring of the seas. It's crazy. And even going back to earthquakes, places like Haiti. How easily have we forgotten how terrible that was? And that was what? 8 years or something? So anyway, there's earthquakes, there's roaring of the seas. Some people say that the disappearance of animals is also a prophecy. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at that closely. But I do know what I see. And I see that bees are disappearing, and that's a big problem. We ask China. When bees disappear, that's going to be a big problem with our foods. We see on the news how the fish are marine life basically washing up the shore by the hundreds of thousands. Whales, dolphins, starfish, turtles, fish. That's going to affect our food sources, and we wonder why Revelation says in the tribulation period, a loaf of bread will cost a day's wage. Would you buy Roman meal if it costs $80 today? I wouldn't. So how much is a steak going to cost? It's leading up to that, people. It's leading up to it. Signs in the sky. Well, there's a lot of different things. People hear sounds. They don't know where the sounds are coming from. I don't know if that's a prank or if it's real. There was a light that came down out of the sky, landed on the Dome of Rock over in Israel, and then shot back up. Again, I don't know if that's a prank or real. But I do know that the sun, with its explosions, that's real. Maybe that's what Revelation is talking about when God's going to destroy everything with fervent heat. Because if any explosion comes our direction, like right towards the earth, that's it. That's it. So anyway, I'm pretty sure you guys, people see whatever they want as well. Some of this stuff is just ridiculous. Like they would see a face of Jesus in the clouds. See whatever you want. My friend and I, when we was in college, back in the 90s, late 90s, we was out shopping or whatever, playing Bill or something. We got back in the car, but we noticed the sky was purple. Neither one of us said anything. Outside looked kind of weird. But then I said, dude, why is the sky purple? And he was like, you know what? I've been looking at it all this time, wondering the same thing. It was freaky. Like, and it wasn't like sunrise or sunset. The sky was just purple. Didn't make any sense. And I was a college kid at that time, undergraduate program. I didn't really watch the news like that. But I watched the news that night and the next day looking for a report on it. No report. No one said anything. That was weird. We thought the world was coming to an end. But nobody talked about it on campus. No newspapers. No news reports on TV. Nothing. So anyway, that's signs in the skies. I guess you guys have a lot of things that maybe you can contribute in the comment sections, in the Google Plus and YouTube communities. But that's one sign to look out for. What did I write here? Oh, curse God because of heat. It's not really an end times prophecy, but the Revelation does say that in the tribulation period, it'll be so hot, mankind will actually curse God because of the heat. I guess the people over in India, they know a little something about that because they're being beaten up badly with heat. Like, it's terrible. The streets are even melting in some places. But anyway, and then there's other. So those are some of the prophecies on nature. Other ones are about the world, such as the nations rising up against nations. That will be wars and threats of war. I don't think there's been a single day in the past 50 years that there hasn't been some sort of civil unrest, some sort of riot, some sort of war or threats of war. I mean, consider World War I, World War II. And you also need to understand that end times prophecies, they all have to occur within the same time frame. They're not meant to be way over there and way over here and way over there. They all have to be within the same time frame. Everything that I'm talking about has been within the last 100 years. Everything. Even America has had so many different wars. Vietnam, the stuff going over in the sandbox right now, like Iran, Iraq. So that's one thing to look out for. Then there's the prophecy that says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. When you think of Noah, you got to think of scoffing, unbelief. And think about Noah. He was preaching that the rain was coming for over 100 years. I'm pretty sure he was being mocked the whole time. People laughing at him, scoffing, saying, it's never rain. We don't even know what rain is. We get our water from the ground. You're a crazy old man. Your sons are crazy. You're delusional. It's not going to rain. You're crazy. You're building this ark for what? Some of you can't endure ridicule for 10 minutes, let alone 100 plus years. You see, but it's not Noah who needs to take it personally. It's God who's taking it personally. Because scoffers aren't really scoffing men, they're scoffing God. Because the man is simply giving other people his message, God's message. So God is the one who actually takes it personally. And the scriptures do say, he that despises not man, but God. So arise in scoffing. You see that now? I see it too. Everybody sees it. They're saying, hey, you're talking about this rapture's coming. Nothing's changed. Like Peter said, they're all going to say everything has been happening the same way since our fathers up until now. They're doing that. They're doing exactly that. The unbelievers, the scoffers, are actually doing exactly what the Bible says they were going to do. They're actually puppets of prophecy, and they don't even know it. So that's one thing to look out for. Also, the scriptures say, as it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. We all know that when you think of Lot, you think of Sodom and Gomorrah. This LGBT stuff it's not coincidence. The homosexuality, it's not coincidence. The gay rights, the pride parades, this is not coincidence. As it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. Then there's godless religiosity. Godless religiosity. I see religiosity all over the place, everywhere. I see a whole bunch of cults and religions that have sprung up out of America within the last 100, 150 years. Whole ton of them. And that's why for me, when we talk about the rider on the white horse, to me, I'm not saying it's not the Antichrist, but I think it's religiosity. Because why would the first rider be a man and every other rider be things? It's just not cool. It's just not... It doesn't make any sense to me. Why would one person be a man and every other rider would be things? But I do see a lot of religions that borrow and distort from the Bible. They borrow and distort from Christianity. Some of them even claim to be Christians, but they're not. I see religiosity. They will have a form of godliness, but deny the power. They will not heed sound doctrine, as the scriptures say. They will have itching ears, turning to fables. They will gather leaders and teachers unto themselves, because they want these people to tell them lies and delusions, because that's what they want to believe. So godless religiosity. Men's hearts, failing them for fear. A lot of people are dying of heart attacks. So much stress. I mean, people don't know how they're going to feed themselves, let alone put their kids through college, and how they're going to retire. Investors watching their investments tank. Always worrying about that. A lot of people are having heart attacks, even young people. So as the scriptures say, men's hearts failing them for fear. One of the key signs dealing with the world, I'm still in the world. I did nature, now I'm dealing the world. One of the key signs is what Daniel said. There's going to be a vast increase in knowledge and transportation. Knowledge. Think of the industrial age. Think of the how we've discovered the atom. How actually we split the atom. How we've discovered parasites and germs. How we've cured diseases. How we've walked on the moon. Knowledge has increased tremendously within the last 100 years. Tremendous. It's been a serious boom. Daniel said those days, when you're in that time, knowledge and transportation will be increased. In terms of transportation, think about it. From Adam up until about 100 years ago, people walked and rode on the backs of donkeys and horses and camels and elephants in some cases. Now we have bikes, airplanes, airports. If you go to the airport in Atlanta, that place is packed every day. You have people who commute in a single year than people commuted in their entire lifetime in ages gone by. So knowledge and transportation have taken a huge leap forward within the last 100 years, and that is the key sign to know that you are in the last age. Then there's the church. I'm probably going to run out of time because I got 2 minutes. The church, I'll just deal with two things. There's the great falling away, which is also a key sign, because that day will not come until there's a great falling away first. You can see how much the church is falling. The false doctrines, the false teachers. I remember a time when the church would boldly speak about how, and they would boldly speak about repentance, how women couldn't wear makeup or pants, or Christians couldn't go to the movies. I was a boy then. Nowadays, some cases you walk into a church and some of these women look like they're going to a nightclub. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, there's the salt that loses its flavor. Jesus said that the salt will lose its flavor. It cannot be resalted. Obviously, look at how the world looks at the church now. They don't trust the church. They don't want to hear what the church has to say. There was once upon a time politicians would ask for the blessings from the church, a prayer. Help me to be a good candidate and a wise leader and care for the people. Now, they don't care for that. They just want your vote. Salt that loses its flavor and is cast out and trampled underfoot, and it cannot be resalted. Once trust is gone, it's gone. It's not going to come back. And you see that going on, especially in the Western church. Lastly, is Israel, and I am going to run out of time, so I'm just going to say this really quickly. Israel has to be regathered. They have to be, which is the key sign, because nothing else would actually follow unless they're first regathered. Born in a day, reestablish Hebrew, reestablish culture, reestablish the shekel, be surrounded by enemies, and a few other things. But basically, these are end times prophecies. If you're not really dealing with these sort of things, you're not dealing with end times prophecies. You're just giving us news. So hopefully this will benefit somebody somehow.